You've been both critical of the original Obama administration Iranian deal with the big upfront payout of money, but also critical of the administration's decision to pull out. Explain that position.
The president, every time you hear him talk, is very, very critical of the money being given up front. And I was critical also for several years as the agreement was coming, in the sense that I think if you had parsed the money out slower over a long period of time, it's your one carrot that you can draw back if there's not compliance. But that being said, all of the international agencies that examine for atomic weapons and enrichment have said that Iran has complied, with the nuclear agreement. The irony is now we pull out of the agreement and then we're mad because Iran is now enriching above the agreement. It's like, well, we're no longer in the agreement. We sort of breached the agreement. And they also, as we've ratcheted up sanctions, they really do see it as economic warfare, and it would be sort of like telling me, if you're a grocery store owner and you sell groceries and I surround your store and say you can't sell any groceries, you might take offense to that. You might think that I'm acting in an aggressive or warlike manner against your grocery store. That's essentially what we're doing. The old sanctions used to allow quite a bit of oil to go out to China, India, Japan, and South Korea. The new sanctions are trying to squeeze that to zero, and I thought a year or two ago they won't be that effective and Iran will still be able to sell the oil. I think they are being effective, but I think we're going to have the opposite effect. Instead of driving them to negotiation, we may drive them into military confrontation. And so right now, every evidence is the sanctions, as they get worse, are driving us towards more military confrontation instead of saying, oh, well, we're sorry, now we want to talk. So there has to be somehow on our side the ability to understand that we have to give up something. We have to give up some sanctions in order to get some behavior change. That's sort of the carrot we have is relief of sanctions. But if we say we're not giving up any sanctions until they do everything we want, it's sort of an unrealistic ask, and we're never going to get any progress.
What's your broader view on economic sanctions as a foreign policy tool? Because I, for instance, have criticized sanctions on Cuba forever, and yet we still have a Castro regime.
Cuba is a good example of them not working, and it's getting crazier and crazier. There's a whole segment of people up here who believe sanction it. It's sort of like the old, what was the Reagan saying about if it moves, regulate it, if it stops, tax it. The whole idea that there's always an answer through taxation or regulation. It's the same with sanctioning. We have a bill that will be coming up tomorrow in the Foreign Relations Committee, unless we stymie it, which we're going to try to, is that will sanction Europe. It's going to sanction Switzerland. Switzerland's been neutral in 2 world wars. We're going to sanction because they're helping to build the pipeline between Russia and Germany. And I'm in the minority, but I actually think Germany and Russia trading oil and money back and forth is a good thing. I think if Germany's dependent on Russian oil and Russian oil is dependent on German euros, makes them less likely to fight, I would think. I think the trade in general makes you less likely to fight. But there's going to be and it probably will pass, unfortunately, it has sanctions on everybody helping to build the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, but includes Switzerland, Austria, Germany, Holland, Royal Dutch Shell, which has 100,000 workers in America probably.
All of those super belligerent countries.
Exactly. Yeah. Holland really needs sanctions. We're having such a tough time with Holland. Yeah. But that's the craziness is they're not blinking an eye. Now, they think they're hurting Russia, but they're actually sanctioning European allies. It's a terrible, awful, rotten, no good bill, and yet we're worried it might pass.